Okay, so here we are. We're going to go through lesson three, which is continuing to understand our audience, right? So we're going to look at qualitative and quantitative research and how that differs, and why it is important, and why that is important in terms of understanding how the BRC comes to like their figures and process, a little bit closer to understand the process. And so again, as I always do, I read parts of the slides and I just elaborate further on them. Okay. All right. So let's introduce you to the concept of portable people meter. Okay. In a nutshell, this is a way that when we're doing the research and finding numbers, like it's immediate up to minute, like up to the minute result that we can get from, especially with music, understanding the favoritism, whatever it is in terms of music, and trying to scale off what we're doing is correct. 24/7 pager like device that always it's always with you and records what you listen to without having to fill in any surveys. It's through data direction and GPS technology, can record what stations the respondent is being exposed to. Radio frequencies sent by radio stations can be encoded with data by the PPM. PPM is a movement sensor to ensure that it's always on a respondent and can pick up date and times as well as how long you listen for. So this is a nice. Obviously, it's a newer technology, and it is a great way to kind of like again, kind of like skip the more intensive uh, research that we do from diaries to get again quite a good understanding of what our listeners' behavior is. And again, once again, because it's immediately digitized and then coded into a database, like we can get summatives and cumulative numbers, which is super cool, right? Okay, but there are a lot of differences, right? And let's first further understand PPM before we can understand how the diaries are and what is the big difference over there, right? So data pickup is, like I said, it's collected, it presents a group of people. The advantages is that it's automatically recorded. We have that in like a clear data form. There's no room for human error, in the sense that again, because it's computerized, like it is exactly what it receives is exactly obviously how it accumulates and then again saves that data so that it can be processed into knowledge, at the end of the day. So the data is more precise. If we look at the disadvantages of PPM, well, the measures that most prominent media or tagged media in the room, sorry, it measures, let me put emphasis differently. So it will measure what is the most prominent tag media in the room. So, for example, if you're listening to the radio with TV on, it's going to pick up the TV, or if you've fallen asleep with the PPM on, like it's going to measure you as a listener as long as you move around every few minutes. And we know, like, we're not really attentive to our particular movements when we are in our deep sleep mode, especially. So it is expensive, and again, the equipment is obviously higher technology. So like I mean, the sample set, so that how many people that we can actually issue a PBM to is a lot less than what we do when we do with the diaries, right? And you have to commit to wearing it for a full year to actually understand again with these discrepancies that do exist, like like for us to get a good indication of how a listener's behavior is within their lifestyle. Remember, lifestyle is it's the focus for understanding like numbers. And then again, I say from there's always there's data, there's information, and there is knowledge. Where data is, for example, 5 Rand 95. So 5 Rand 95 means nothing to me unless I can link that to a record in my database that says like I don't know, like what costs 5.95, almost like nothing. But let's say it's like a sherbet packet, a pack of sherbet or a lollipop or whatever it is, right? So I would put 5.95. I would put like the unique code for what like a lollipop is in my database. I would just put the description in there, and I would say obviously 5.95 like is for one individual unique content pricing, but I would say how much is in stock. So, for example, maybe about 100 in stock or whatever. And now it starts becoming information. And knowledge is how we accumulate information into new three-dimensional uh, perspectives, right? So, for example, I'll take a database that has 500,000 records in. So, for example, sales of the day, and sales for the week, or sales of the day, but it will be accumulated over, let's say, the month. And I can start to add the more fields I can add to that record. Like, for example, it was bought by a female. She was this age. It was bought on a Friday night, and there were other, there were also patterns in what was bought with it. We can do basket analysis, that type of stuff, and then present it as knowledge. So something that allows us to make decisions. We can't just make decisions based on information, because the information is presented in very, very, very large amounts and quantities. So we have to obviously re like restructure, and again, kind of like a reformalize that large amount, that database, into knowledge. Okay, and that's where you guys you've done like your Excel, whatever it is, in your first year, and that's your pivot tables and pivot graphs and all that type of stuff, and complex formulas come in to do some effective data analysis. Okay, most media businesses are trying to find ways to convert their listeners into users of their digital content stream. So once again, like, for us to even start making business decisions, so stuff that obviously affects the business strategies and movements and actions and repercussions of that, like, have to be researched first. So if a radio station can get listeners to engage with their content online, they can learn more about how listeners consume and respond to content in general in this day and age, where I've said this before, like, it's very, very like, it's volatile. Like, that we have so many different ways of that we as individuals do consume, process, and then interact, engage, whatever it is, share, whatever it may be, content in general. So let's say in a traditional format, like, for example, listening to radio, if it is effective, then we'll have like what we call obviously the water cooler effect, which means like I'm going to go and hang around a water cooler, with my colleagues, whatever it is, and I will start bringing up these discussions that I've heard, that I process into information, and we now then reprocess into knowledge by talking about it, whatever it is. Or again, social media and the digital space, like, it does the same thing, because conversations and interactions and a lot of fights as well, very controversial, conflicts are grown on social media. And so we can understand how people start to consume, but also process, and then whether, in a healthy, unhealthy way, decide to use that or apply that to the way that they behave, and they're not orchestrated within their everyday life. Okay, so there's digital measurements. Okay, extremely versatile. It can range from geolocated data, so where obviously the person listening to rich data, understanding like the personal info of somebody, right? So the value of collecting rich data and then cross-referencing it with other sets, like I say, to understand that would be something that you are familiar with, like pivot tables, when we are crossing data in a three-dimensional space for it to bring about new knowledge, and new information that we can actually process business and support the business decisions from, comes from collecting the right data and then knowing how to cross-reference it correctly. Otherwise, it just it turns into knowledge, but it's garbage knowledge, something that you can't really use. So the whole process needs to be, again, like, done correctly, to yield the correct results, right? Okay, so for example, where they travel, what they buy, what ads work for them, how effective, certain like let's say, digital advertising works, what type of content and questions were more effective for engagements and interactions. Again, back to the lifestyle, the reasons why, people have started to listen from 4:30 in the morning and stop listening at about 6:30 because of the lifestyle changes and the demands of workspaces and workplaces. That is becomes a bit of a pattern within a certain sector of our country, or whatever it means, or certain industries. Doesn't really matter, right? But we'll start understanding answers based on just like researching properly, and then again, like kind of like disseminating, like compartmentalizing that approach. So this means advertisers can then target much clearer and more, I say, effective. So we're going to get like a higher return on investment for what it is that we are, paying for, like on a radio station, or again in a digital space, what type of content we'll be creating to support that advertisement for, so we can get again a higher return on investment, and so on and so forth. Right. Okay. So let's look at a couple more points again with our data measurements. Benefit of any content media platform obviously includes potentially large and varied audience reach, right? So, for example, this is why Facebook has dominated in the social media advertising space. Not so much, even though you get, like, let's say you're going to pay for an ad, like on Facebook, you'll get it obviously replicated on Instagram, but like you'll get that when you look at your analytics for how many people have clicked on it, how many people have liked it and not clicked on it, or how many people just didn't do anything at all, just kind of passed it by, whatever it is, depending on how you've constructed that particular advertisement to roll out, because you're the one that defines again a certain bracket of like whether they're male or female or both, or they are between this and this age, their interests lie in X, Y, and Z. They belong to a certain, country. All these types of things are, dependent on how effective your results will be, right? So we can't just guess away if you have done or have been exposed to any type of attempting, attempts to advertising digitally. Like it is a difficult thing, and it's definitely, when I say difficult, like it is a trial and error thing. So when you do decide to, let's say, that's a nice backdrop there with a car alarm. Anyway, so when you do decide to, advertise on, like you must constantly change, like they must refine and tweak, like the actual advertisement. Let's say you're going to advertise for, let's say, 10 days or 7 days, or whatever it may be. Every day you must go back and see like the analytics, so that you can just again trial and error that particular advert to start seeing more, like I said, cause and effect, right? And that's how you learn. Okay, you can't just say, "Oh well, I hope for this," and boom, let me just see at the end of it, like what I get. You have to, like I say, go in there and readjust the formatics of that particular advert that you are now placing out. Anyway, okay, so terrestrial radio stations have limited data, as RAM diaries give basic information but can't give them the granular data that, for example, Facebook can. Like I said, with the analytics, super, super detailed. Again, if you have a business profile, better for you. Like that's basically how you are allowed to actually advertise on Facebook, and again, obviously mirror that on Instagram, Twitter, with LinkedIn, etc. Means that advertisers are looking for a particular user to go to the platform that can guarantee their adverts are being seen by the correct people. So once again, we obviously try to, we do not try to. like as you know, as a station, if I've got an activation that's running or like on air, I'm going to mirror that, like so that I'm going to use the digital platform as an added value, as an extra reach possibility. I'm going to mirror that particular promotion, included part of my sales package, etc. Put it out there, go for it, like, and then again, constantly change that kind of like revitalize that content of how that will be then you know exposed to users and people again that are following my particular business page or right. uh, you know how it is, like when you are quote unquote, and people say, oh, like the phone listens to you. It does, because when you go and you use, let's say, the you want to go from obviously like speech to text, right? Like you're talking into and you're providing it with data. So it isn't some conspiracy theory. You literally are giving like Google a reason to share that information across different platforms or whatever it is. And those platforms, like the social media platforms, are allowed to go and when you sign the privacy policy, when you are creating a profile, whatever, like it says there, like, we are going to use information that you do on your posts, etc., like that, if necessary, to be able to create advertisements, for example, right, and introduce groups to you, etc., etc., for your benefit, not for anything else. the Sure, there are a lot of constantly there are a lot of adverts that are completely irrelevant to you, which you can obviously just mute and unfollow and block or whatever it is. But that is how the process goes. Okay. All right. All right. So just to kind of close up with the lesson here, digital measurements, digital migration, and registered users offer media companies data that was previously just a guessing game. You understand? Because again, not that so our RAMs are a lot more detailed and a lot more dependable stats in terms of like the way that we flood, and we obviously exponentially grow that particular sample set. So sample sets normally represent something quite small, but in the bigger scheme of things, with like 60, I think we're at 68 million, I'm not sure, in this country. And the sample sets are within the tens of thousands, I think. That's small enough to call it a sample set. But anyway, yeah. So we can only do so much. You understand? Digital is included that like I have included obviously the way that you use or what you use in terms of what you prefer, in terms of like your different digital outlets, so podcasting, like social messaging, social media, online radio, etc., etc. But again, there's a line that draws the difference between ppm and then rams. Okay. So the process minimizes wastage, right? Again, just remember the disadvantages like cost obviously limits the amount of the sample set, and again the time to make sure that we can chuck away what is called junk data. Um, and the key is to get users to sign up or log in to access the content from the media owner. Here are just some differences from the BRC to the PPM. Okay, and there are similarities. So we have the differences quarterly results. So every 3 months, a year, we will get BRC RAMs, where PPM is immediate results. We have paper, and then we have pager-like device. The data is picked up, collated, and weighed up and down to represent a group of people, right? You write down your 7 days listening for BRC RAMs, where you monitor for a year. You depend on what you remember and write down, where obviously PPM is more precise. Okay, so what you need to do is complete the activity and attend class. On page 427, let me just head over to there. 11B, let me go. So number one says provide an innovative idea to get listeners to move from listening on an FM radio platform to a radio station's mobile app. Explain how your plan to entice the users to log into the app and to provide their email addresses and cell phone numbers would what would you do? You understand? People don't like it purely because some people still consider like the sharing of that type of information just a little bit too much of a share. And there's a lot of, again, that kind of fear mongering of what happens, and you get. But the big thing is, like, you don't want spam mail. That's the most irritating thing. Like, we don't know how often, like, someone spams you daily, twice daily, until you sign up and you log in, right? And then you have to unsubscribe, and it is a mission because your inbox, like your mail inbox, it just becomes just messy, completely messy, because we've signed into too many websites, too many apps, and we change those consistently, right? Number two, discuss the advantage and disadvantage of utilizing PPM technology in South Africa. Again, I mentioned the cost. Consider how PPM measurements would differ from the current paper radio diaries that are in use, which we just went through right. Okay, that is the end of lesson 3. And with that, I'll stop recording.